Hello, awesome people. I hope you're having a great day today. Today we're taking a look at Sprague de Camp and Fletcher Pratt's Wall of Serpents. It's the fourth story in the Harold Shea series. This one was published in 1953. And I have been doing a deep dive into these authors that are heavily influential on fantasy. And so this was posted in a magazine, and now this is the publication of it. And we've been doing a deep dive into them. I'll link you to this or one of the collections that includes it in the comments below for place on Amazon. This is the first book that we did a deep dive into, The Complete Enchanter. And after these three novellas that were published in the early 40s, they then wrote this 1953 thing. This thing that Wall of Serpents is the 1960 republication from the magazine that was published in 53. These two authors are mentioned on Appendix N by Gygax, so I always wanted to do a deeper dive into their work, and I came across this collection of the three novellas that we've already reviewed for you in this Harold Shea series. And then what winds up happening is over those three things, and I picked that up at a sale of used books in State College, Pennsylvania, and I knocked those out. And then I got the Lone Wolf Definitive Collection in the mail from the UK. That was just recently released for the first 5 books, so I read those, and now we're back to this. So it's a lot of fun. Harold Shea is a character who will go with friends sometimes from our world to other worlds using symbolic logic. These worlds will each be very different. And this book's actually a little different. He's actually in 2 worlds. About half the book feels like one half of a completed story that's complete around chapter 9. And then starting from chapter 10 until the end, about halfway through, then it goes on. It took me about 3.5 hours for me to knock out this 180-page novel over the last 3 days. So it was a lot of fun. It was pretty fast. The good thing about reading some of these older novels like Wall of Serpents is that they don't take a lot of time to read. You could easily, this, for example, The Complete Enchanter is a collection of 3 stories, right? And it's only like 400 pages long, right? I've seen, entire novels that would take you longer to read in the modern context that are hundreds of pages longer than that, right? So it's pretty quick and easy to read some of these older stuff, these older things for you. So you're going off and you're starting in the Kalevala for the first part. And I actually have a copy of the Kalevala here. So that one I've actually was familiar with. In the first novel, he wants to go to Irish mythology. Because he knows a lot about it, did some research on it and so forth. But he winds up, the magic doesn't work, and he winds up in Asgard right before Ragnarok. And then he has to deal with Ragnarok and interact with people like Loki and Thor and Freya and others that are there in Asgard. So that's the first novella. Second novella, he takes one of his friends, and they wind up in the Fairy Queen, an epic multi-book series written by Edmund Spencer. There he'll pick up a woman, and they'll adventure in the Fairy Queen's world for a while, help out against the big bads. Then he'll go to Furioso, which is an Italian epic, and he'll be in that world for a while. He'll bring back with him a couple of friends, so there's like 4 of them that go to that one. And then now he's going to the world of the Kalevala for the first half, and then for the second half he's in Irish mythology, which is what he's always going to. And each of these worlds has their own separate rules. For example, for magic, that you have to understand and realize in order to make magic work. There's a reason why this is called The Complete Enchanter, right? He's able to use the worlds of magic, and mythics, and so forth. So in each of these 5 different places that he's been, in these 4 different stories, the key sort of concept is, well, how does magic work here, and how can I get magic to work, and how can I control magic and then send this back? That's sort of the key sort of power level of these books, if you will. Now, these books have a lot of influences in fantasy and later on Dungeons and Dragons. So there's a reason why Gary Gygax mentions this stuff in his appendix, and two authors that I've always wanted to do a deeper dive into. I picked up a novel by them called The Tower of Xanon that I read about 10 years ago. Haven't gone back and reread it. And I haven't reviewed it for this channel either. So these two authors. That's the first time. The Appendix N by Gary Gygax is in 1979's Dungeon Master's Guide to the first edition. So that's why we're doing a deeper dive into these guys, because of how influential they are. I've already talked about how some of these things are already feel like key influences. For example, in one of these worlds, there are verbal, somatic, and material components that are called verbal, somatic, and material components for spells. The third world, Furioso. And that's exactly how magic works, sort of, in the thing. For example, so in all these worlds, gunpowder doesn't work. It's just not possible. It's not, the world is not chemically created in such a way. Well, that's also, for example, Greyhawk. You can't make gunpowder. It's just chemically inert. So these sorts of worlds seem to have those in common. The frost giants from fire giants, the hill giants from the first book, the roaring trumpet that I've already reviewed for you are exactly the descriptions, power levels, intelligence levels, characterizations feel like exactly lifted from Dungeons and Dragons, right? There are a lot of these influences that you guys see in early Dungeons and Dragons from this series, and so I definitely think it's pretty cool. This one, I think, a lesser amount than the first three. Again, the sort of inert sort of things, and those sorts of things that are happening. Still has and learned the rules of that world, and the world being different in each of these two worlds. The Kalevala and the Irish mythology are different from each other, and so he has to learn them. I would have preferred this to have been written as two separate novellas rather than just one novel. It definitely feels like two self-contained stories with their own endings. The first one feels like it ends well, and then the second one feels like it ends well. So I definitely feel that this is a weird way to write this stuff. And again, it's 180 pages long. I actually think it's more like 175. But it's super fast to read. You can knock it out pretty quickly. I think knocking it out from one novel to two novellas would have made a lot of sense. Coming to this as a person who has never read this series before. This series is beloved. The second novella was nominated for a Retro Hugo in 2016. So this is definitely something that's beloved at its time, and definitely still warmly regarded by fans. So there you are. That is the Wall of Serpents by Shea and Pratt. So I'll leave you to it. Have you read it? What did you think of it? I'd be more than happy to engage with it further in the comments below, whatever your take is of this novel. As a reminder, I keep my reviews spoiler free, so if you want to talk about spoilers in the comments below, I'd be more than happy to do that with you. If you enjoyed this, why not hit that subscribe button? There's going to be a lot more of these to follow. And then finally, I want to thank you so much for taking some time out of your day and investing it and watching my video. We all have so many things that are happening in our lives, and we're pulled in so many different directions. So the fact that you spent this time with me is incredibly humbling, and I appreciate it. So thanks again, and have an amazing day.